Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Brothers, Field CTO and Solutions Architect here at IOTech Systems. I am based out of Fort Worth, Texas, and in this video, we will be going over how to utilize NodeRed, an open source low-code graphical programming tool, to interact with the Edge Central APIs. We will be covering the REST APIs, along with the MQTT APIs. So let's get into it. Alright, so I am over here on my Linux box. I have Edge Central already installed. And now, to get the demo started, I will start standing up some of our services that we'll use. BACnet Sims, NodeRed, of course, system management, and then device virtual. So the device virtual service is really great for testing. It'll give you random string values, integer values, floats, anything you can think of that you would need in your testing of any of your application services or anything like that, which I'll show you in the UI, which is another one I need to stand up, and yeah, that looks good. All right, everything is up. Let's refresh this. Alrighty, so as you can see, we have all of our device virtuals stuff. So if we go into one of these, you can see that you can get random N16s, random N32s, random N64s. Like I said, it's great for testing any of your application services or any logic that you may have. Okay, all right. So now I'm going to go into NodeRed. Let's get rid of that. Deploy. Okay. So NodeRed is a very powerful tool for any logic that you have to write as a supervisory control. So there are a few ways that we can tap into Edge Central, and I will show you all of those. So first off, I'm going to drag in an MQTT in. I'm going to set this to MQTT-broker, and since we don't have any of the security stuff set up, we don't have to. We can leave all of this stuff blank. Add that. The topic, we'll just subscribe to everything right now, and let's debug it and see what we can get. All right. Oh, okay. Yep. And now we have messages flowing. So as you can see, we do base 64 encode the payloads. So a better way to really get what you need is by using this snippet of code here, buffer.from base 64, and then we UTF-8 encode it. And then what we can do is just drag a JSON node out there. Let's go ahead and deploy that. Let's see how that looks. All right, yep. As you can see, we're getting an EdgeX event with the value type, profile name, resource name, device name, all that good stuff. So we are tapped in to the internal Edge Central message bus. Now, if we wanted to only listen to uint8, we could easily do that. And actually, I will drag this out, break this link, deploy that, and we'll just uint8 to save some space on the screen here, and deploy. And now we should only be getting uint8 readings. Okay, So that is how you can tap directly into the Edge Central message bus using MQTT. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take that uint8 value and do something with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and drag another function in there, open this guy up, and copy and paste this code. So what this code is doing is we're going to parse float on message.payload.event.readings0.value. So we can see, so this entire object right here is the message.payload. You can see that here. So message.payload.event. Readings is an array because you can have more than one reading if you define it that way. This one we're only worried about one, and then .value. So we're getting the value. So if the value is greater than 0, we're going to set the string, which is assigned to our random string device, and you can see that here, string. So this is the device resource we're targeting. We're going to set it to wow, it's true. If it's not over 0, then we're going to say, oh no, it's false, and then we're going to return the payload. Okay. And how we're going to interact with that string device is via the REST API. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this here and go into the HTTP request. So there are two methods that you use to get and set values, get and put. So since we want to set the value, we're going to do a put. And this is what the URL structure looks like. When you're inside of Edge Central, you can just use the Docker DNS name. So we're targeting core command. This is the service that issues commands to the device service. The port 59882, API, we're on version 3. Device name, and then the device name, and then the device resource name. So if we go back to the UI, device name, device resource name. Okay, and that's it. So let's actually drag out a debug here, clear that, and now we can wait. Okay, so we got a debug status code 200. Let's go check our, yep, so wow, it's true. Let's see if we can get it to go false. Actually, what I'm gonna do is edit. I'm gonna speed up this auto event so we don't have to wait for forever. All right, let's go back to this random string. Let's see if we can catch it. Well, I guess we'll do 200 because it's unsigned. Yep, there we go. So now it's false. And it will turn true. Yep, now it's true. All right, so that is how you would utilize tapping into the MQTT message bus, doing some logic here, and then setting a value on a device in Edge Central using the REST APIs. All right, so now what we're gonna do is use the REST API to get a value and do something with it. So what I'm going to do, drag out an inject node, and then an HTTP request node, connect those. And now, instead of a put command, we do a get command. Okay. So this is what that structure looks like. These are just optional query parameters, which I'll explain in a minute. So it's the same exact structure. You've got device name, your device name, and then the device resource, and then some query parameters. DS push event equals false. That means we're not going to push it directly. Every time we call this, we're not going to push it to the internal message bus. And then DS return event equals true, because we want to get the event back. That is the default behavior, but return event true ensures that you get it back. And the circumstance where you have it set this false is if you were just trying to trigger an automation, right? If you were trying to set something or something like that and you don't really need a response, you could set that to false. All right, so now I'm gonna make sure it is JSON. And let's just see what that looks like. Drag out a debug and we'll deploy it. All right, the same structure as the MQTT message. Okay, with the status code 200, denoting that, you know, everything was successful. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write some logic. Almost the same kind of thing here. Well, it's true. We'll change it just a little bit. So message.payload.event.reading0.value. This is really, you'll be using this a lot to target the values that you want. So now we can just hook this up to the request. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this link here so we're only using this. Let's turn on this debug to make sure. So let's inject status code 200. Let's go back here. Yep, wow, it's bull true. So that is how you would use the REST API to get a value. Now usually you would want to set up some intervals here. You know, we'll do every 2 seconds, and then every 2 seconds it will issue that GET request, and now you have an interval. Let me turn this back into manual. And that is how you get values via the REST API. All right, so now what we're gonna do is utilize the MQTT API to set values. All right, so for this, we will need an MQTT out node, a function, and we're gonna connect those together. And I'll show you what the topic structure looks like to utilize the MQTT API. So almost the same as the URL structure, EJEX, core, command. This is a request. This is going to be the device name, the device resource, and then the operation that we want. This can either be get or set. And I'll show you the get in a little bit. So to save space, I'm going to say bool set. All right, we'll just utilize this. And here is what this will look like. All right. So we're getting the reading and the value. We are setting a variable called command payload, and then we're stringifying this object here. So device resource and what we want to set it to. And then we're UTF encoding it, base 64 encoding it, and then this is the message payload structure for the MQTT API. So you have your API version, content type, application JSON, the correlation ID, the request ID, and then the payload that we just encoded up here, which will be either one of these. So yeah, the request ID is used to track requests. You can either have it generated via UUID, or you can do this just static. The correlation ID is kind of the same thing. So this is what you send in to the internal message bus to set a value via this topic structure. And we will see that now. All right, so let's go ahead and deploy that. Let's go back to our, so what we're gonna do is actually debug this to make sure. All right, just to make sure, and we have the payload. All right, and that's what it looks like sending into the MQTT message bus. And if we go to our random Boolean, let's make sure that, and now it's true. And if we click a few more times, I'm sure it'll go back to false. Let's go ahead and just make this 2000. Let's just force it, make it 0. And there we go. It's false. So that is how you utilize the MQTT API to set a value. All right, so now what we're gonna do is utilize the MQTT API to get a value. So we've seen that we can tap in to the internal message bus, listen for auto events to be generated, and do whatever we want with it. What this is gonna show you is how to explicitly get a value. Okay, so we're gonna have a timestamp, drag out a function, make sure that is JSON. This is going to be an MQTT out. All right, let's connect all these together. Let's work on our function first. And the payload is almost identical to setting a value, you just don't have a payload, of course. So you have your API version, your content type, your correlation ID, and your request ID. And now, in the MQTT out node, pretty much the same exact structure, EJX, core, command, request, device name, bool, and we're gonna get this time. Okay. All right, so what do we need to do to subscribe to this explicit get? So we're gonna put an MQTT in, and I am going to paste this in there, widen this out. Let's open this guy up again. Okay. All right, so the topic response that you need to subscribe to is going to be EJX response, the device service name, in this case it's device-virtual, and then the request ID. So that's why we hard-coded this request ID, is that is how we are going to listen for this specific GET request to the MQTT. Okay, so we're going to make sure it's JSON. We are going to parse the values because they do come in base 64 encoded. So same code as before, and we just want the value. That's what we're listening for. And now we can debug it and see if this works. And for some reason, I don't know why it did that. That's fine. Shows it off one more time. EdgeX core command. This is a request to the random Boolean device targeting the bool device resource, and it's a get operation. All right, so let's deploy that. All right, and one thing I forgot to do is we always want to convert this to a JavaScript object and redeploy that, and let's see if it works. Yep, there we go. And now we can set up our interval again if we wanted to, every second. Let's just do that. Yep, and now we are getting the value, listening for its response, and we can do things with it just like we did up here. We can actually send it in to set values or anything else. So that is how you utilize Edge Central's APIs, REST and MQTT, to either subscribe to values, get values, set values, and you can have as much logic in here as you want. All right, thanks for listening.